Welcome to the BG podcast. We are live for the 93rd edition of our weekly Wednesday podcast. Let me say hello to all of the regular viewers. I can see a lot of the regular faces in the chat. Many thanks for tuning in. Many thanks for some of you who've been here live, waiting for this to go live. Many thanks for everyone who checks this out after it's been uploaded to the channel at a later date. Please hit the thumbs up button now if you're watching live, or later if you're watching after it's gone up. So hopefully even more people will join us. Joined already on the panel by Paul and by Sherry. Understand some of the other guys are going to be jumping on. Jet and Irish Tom should be on. Jay less likely tonight, but we shall see. Let me just give you guys a brief run through of what we're going to be discussing. We'll start off with a bit of GGG Canelo and talk about some of the latest updates in that saga. We may touch on Tyson Fury, may touch on Joe Joyce versus Lenroy Thomas. May have a bit of a discussion about James DeGale, something that I wanted to put forward tonight, which is a little bit different. And then we'll obviously preview next week's boxing. Amir Khan taking on Lo Greco, Carl Frampton versus Donaire, Adrian Broner versus Jesse Vargas. So without further ado, let's get cracking. We'll bring Seri in. And Seri, I guess we're going to start by asking you for your reaction to the news that Triple G takes on Vargas Martirosyan.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awkward one. It's like we just said before we went obviously live. The issue is not of G personally. This is what people on Twitter don't understand. Obviously, a tweet can only be taken as the way it's written. If you're having a conversation with someone, it's very different. My issue is not with Triple G personally. The issue is with the lack of a contingency plan for their fighter. Now, obviously, if you signed on for a fight with Canelo, you're assuming that fight's going to take place. It's too big, and there's a lot of money involved, and it's Cinco de Mayo weekend, so you're going to assume that fight will take place. Obviously, with whatever's happened with Canelo, that's a separate issue. Doesn't mean that I'm on Canelo's side or that I have sympathy for him, because I don't really, if I'm honest. But Triple G's team, that's a massive letdown for me in terms of an opponent. I appreciate the excuses that they want to take a low risk fight to ensure that the rematch can go ahead in September without any sort of potential hiccups. Of course, look, you had Spike O'Sullivan in the running, and you had Vargas Martirosyan, which, again, I don't understand how they managed to pull him out of nowhere. He's been off the scene for 2 years, and out of nowhere, he somehow gets sanctioned by the WBC and WBA as an okay opponent for Triple G on 2.5, 3 weeks notice. I think we're 2.5 weeks away now, aren't we, from May 5th. Not only that, this goes to show, again, people are going to get annoyed, and that's fine. They can be emotional about this. Triple G is not a draw in terms of pay-per-view and that type of draw. He's a draw in terms of it brings excitement and he can sell tickets, and that's fine. And he's someone who has delivered his knockouts, and that's why people wanted to go and watch him. And selling out the StubHub Center is not really a massive deal to me. He's done that before, hasn't he? I think that's why it's called Mexican style too. Back in, I think, October 2014 when he fought Marco Antonio Rubio, that was at StubHub Center. Same thing, isn't it? It's no. What progress has there been in the last 4 years? If he sells it out again, does that mean anything? Do you see what I'm saying? You can't shift any pay-per-views. That's why it's not on pay-per-view. And thankfully it's not, because, again, that's a complete joke in and of itself if that was the case. You can't shift more than 150,000 against Jacobs and Lemieux, but somehow they were going to try and throw him on pay-per-view, with a 2 or 3 week, fight on that short notice. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. The fight for me is one that I'm not even going to bother watching. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to watch it. If I see the highlights on Instagram, like, the knockout of when Triple G knocks him out, cool. I'll bear that, and that's fine. But apart from that, I genuinely don't understand how there must be a middleweight out there in the top 20, maybe not universally. He could be a top 20 guy from the WBO who they could bring in and he could still challenge, even though he's not, potentially ranked very high in the other ones. But if they were going to do that, just bringing in anybody who's a middleweight, why are they bringing in a super welterweight or a light middleweight, however you want to spin it, who's been inactive for 2 years, coming off a loss to Eris Landilara? It just makes no sense. And if Triple G is this brand that they've been trying to build, and Tom Loeffler's been adamant in interviews that Triple G is a big name and he can sell tickets and he can get people excited for his fights, but he does not shift pay-per-view, and he's not that type of star. He's a guy who will have the support of people generally, but they're not willing to put the money in to watch his fights. And I think there's a big difference because he's not. For example, Canelo has a whole country behind him whose national sport is boxing. Mexico and boxing are essentially synonymous, aren't they, in that regard? And Triple G, unfortunately, Kazakhstan, I don't think it's a country that is fully, like completely behind boxing. Not really, obviously, badge for that, but clearly the numbers in terms of pay-per-views aren't adding up for him. And again, I don't know if his fights are on pay-per-view in Kazakhstan or not. I don't know, but overall, do you see what I'm saying? He's not that type of star. He never will be. Unfortunately, it's too late for him to become that type of star, and that's unfortunate. But they cannot, and I personally cannot accept that as an opponent. So I'm just saying now, I'm not going to watch the fight. I'm going to be completely honest. Whether me not watching the fight makes a difference or not is completely irrelevant. But it's not a fight that I'm excited for. It's not a fight that I personally accept, and I think it's an absolute travesty, if I'm honest with you. Genuinely, like I said, the question I put out there to everyone who's listening now, and even to yourself, Irish and Paul, is: are you seriously going to sit there and tell me that a unified middleweight champion cannot find a middleweight in the top 20 anywhere to face on short notice? And I appreciate that Derevyanchenko is mandatory and then it's short notice and whatnot. But if Triple G is a guy that again, it's not a question of him. If his team are that confident that Triple G is the man and he's this all-time great, a historic 21st defense of his middleweight title, then fight your mandatory by all means, because you did that before happily. So why can't you fight a guy who's a perceived threat now? Don't turn into a guy who's dodging or ducking. Not saying he is, but I'm saying people have that opinion online as well, that he's potentially dodging this Derevyanchenko fight because it's risky. And maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't think personally he is. I just think it's a bit short notice to get all that sorted and go into a fight like that. But it's just I don't understand how they're going to pull this guy up from 154 after 2 years and spin that as an okay fight. And again, like I said, it's not a matter of picking on Triple G personally, but you can't do that. For me, it's just, and the potential that he might even be stripped of the IBF is an absolute joke, because the whole point was you want all the belts. So if you're risking losing a belt just to kind of have a low risk fight to save yourself for September for Canelo again, just shows that really they're not after all the belts now. They're after the $15 million payday against Canelo, which is fine, but then don't sell us dreams that you want to be the undisputed champion.
It does look like they're stepping away from the unified dream, because it looks like the IBF are going to strip him, which is it is unfortunate. I mean, a huge amount of the blame for this saga, of course, has to lie with Canelo. Of course,
yeah.
It really does. But Triple G, I agree with you. They should have pulled up a middleweight. Look, Vargas Martirosyan, on his day, he's actually a very good fighter, but he's coming off a loss. He hasn't fought for 2 years. He's not a fighter who belongs in that weight class, and he's taken a fight at very, very, very short notice indeed. You would think that it would have been possible to get a middleweight. Let's put it that way. So it's disappointing, and it continues the kind of bad look for boxing that this whole saga has kind of created. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Sherry. That they know, or they suspected, that Canelo would get a very, very lenient ban, which funnily enough is the next thing I'm intending to ask you about. And because they suspected that Canelo's ban would be so lenient, they took a low risk or even a no risk fight in order to not jeopardize that payday, rather than worrying about the unified titles. That's my take. And it's hard to talk about it without referring to the Canelo ban. So news breaking today that Saul Canelo Alvarez, the recipient of a 6-month ban, which will mean that he is able to fight in August. There seems to be a bit of uproar in the boxing community at this news. Sorry, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, again, like you said, without Canelo obviously failing that test, none of this would have happened. So, of course, the root of the blame lies with Canelo, but let's try and be fair with the fact that, that still shouldn't take anything away from Team Triple G not being able to secure an opponent, or not wanting to secure an opponent, I don't want to keep going on about that. It's not a matter of me attacking Triple G or his team, but if you got to overpay, you overpay. Then if that's the case, this is a one-off. Hopefully a one-off. I hope Canelo doesn't fail another drug test further down the line, and then the fight doesn't happen altogether. But in regards to Canelo, look, I mean, he's fucked up big time here, and that's fine. We can't do anything about that now, and I think it's a 6-month retrospective ban, isn't it, from February to August, like you just said. So it's from the 17th of Feb till the 17th of August, which, like I said, is just idealistic timing. That it's a month before the 15th of September, and he can fight on the Mexican date. So essentially, what Canelo gets is a 1-year layoff, isn't it, without any financial detriment. Really, he's got a 1-year layoff without any sort of fine and just bad publicity. And the saying is, all publicity is good publicity, isn't it? Whether it's good or bad, his name's out there for the right or wrong reasons. It only adds more fuel to the rematch ultimately. Yes, for us hardcore boxing fans who care and are so passionate, it takes a lot away from the fight, especially if Canelo does win the fight, because we're not going to really count it as a victory because we all have our suspicions. But the fact that he's getting a ban and no fine, and he's just getting a little it's a slap on the wrist, really, isn't it, or smack on the wrist, however you want to put it, and he's getting to just literally just walk around like nothing's happened. And of course, he will obviously stand by the fact that it was a meet, and then eventually that will just kind of go away. To us, it might not, but I mean, overall, and his throughout the rest of his career, however long he has left, which is I'd assume another 5 or 6 years at least. He's quite young, isn't he? He's only 27. It's going to go away, and I know what's going to happen. This is not like obviously I can't see the future, but he's going to end up beating Triple G in September, because Triple G is not getting any younger or any better. I'm not saying that he's fallen off already, but the reality is, realistically, Canelo is the only one that can really make some big changes to his game plan in the rematch compared to Triple G. Triple G will always do the same thing, and he will always be effective because he's very good technically, and he's got power, and he's got a chin which is made of something that I don't even want to attempt to try and describe. But Canelo is the guy that can make the adjustments, and as we know, the adjustment fighters 9 times out of 10 in a rematch will always do better. I'm not saying Canelo's as good as a Mayweather or someone like that, but you get my point. If he struggled in the first fight, which he did, and Golovkin won that, fairly clearly for all of us, you know what I mean? I do think that somehow Canelo is going to win the rematch, whether it's rightfully so or not. And there's always going to be that asterisk now moving forward. No one's really going to count it, and it's just going to ruin everything. Because personally, I'd rather they didn't rematch. But like you said, there's too much money in it, and people are going to want to see a rematch in a way now because they want Golovkin to punish him, kind of thing. But for me, this ban is an absolute joke. But it just goes to show that the sport of boxing, as it was from its early days, is a corrupt sport. It's all about the money, and the cash cow will always get that protection. And it's a real shame. And like you said, it's another black eye for boxing, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So when I look back at this saga, sorry, I have very, very mixed emotions. I think people often take the piss out of me because I'm always a sort of glass half full, kind of positive, optimistic guy. Part of me thinks, from the sports perspective, it is good that Canelo failed the test, and it is good that he got banned. It could have so easily been that it was never announced that he failed the test. It could so easily be that things were corrupt to the point that failed tests would be ignored. And it could so easily be that he didn't get any sort of ban at all. The first fight was allowed to continue, and it wouldn't have got any of the publicity. So with my glass half full perspective, I think there are some positives to take out of this. But obviously, the counter argument is a very convincing argument that the treatment Canelo has received, in the way the governing bodies have come out to support him, in how lenient his punishment appears to be, further adds fuel to that suggestion that it isn't a level playing field. Do you kind of see it as points on both sides, really positive or negative, or?
No, of course. I mean,
negative hat.
no. The way you put it is fair, because, well, 100%. I'm sure we'd all agree that there must be occasions where they've swept, drug tests being failed under the rug for the right amount of money. I'm sure we'd all agree that, and we know that the sport is that type of sport where that must have happened on many occasions that we'll never know about. So of course, there's two sides to it, and yes, it's good that it was brought to light. But the reality is, it may have been brought to light, but what's been done? What's the end result?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's. Oh, sorry, you're cutting out a bit there, mate.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Go, say your last sentence again, pal.
Yeah, pardon. I was saying, so I completely appreciate that there's points on both sides, and you're right, there are, the way you put it, and it makes sense. But I think the end result is what matters. If they've done that, and they brought it out, and yes, they've brought to light that Canelo's failed a drug test. Whether he failed it due to meat or whether he cheated, whatever the situation was, he was caught with a substance that should not have been, within his body at whatever point. The reality is there has not been a suitable end result for this person, this individual, this athlete who gets into a ring and hits people for a living, and it's performance enhancing. So again, people can die in there. This is not a joke, but it's about the end result for me. So I completely respect what you said, and there is that argument, and that's fine, and I get that. But for me, it's about what happens at the end, and nothing has happened basically. And there's not really a way to spin it at that point, meaning the end result. There's not a way to spin that as a positive. The initial bit of what you were saying is completely fair. That yes, they brought it up and that's fine. But then you look at people like Mauricio Sulaiman and Gilberto Mendoza and the way they've come out and just, oh my God, no, Canelo's he's definitely 100%, complete joke, complete farce. Mauricio Sulaiman, a guy who a year and a half ago Canelo was throwing under the bus when he fought. Sorry, a year ago when he fought Chavez and he made that special Mexican holiday bout for Canelo. Canelo said, "Get it off. I'm not even going to fight for that, mate. You get out my face," kind of thing. He's been throwing the WBC under the bus for the last year, and just because they're made up now, all of a sudden Canelo's the best thing since sliced bread once again. It's just a joke, isn't it? It's just kissing ass for publicity and money, and it's just. I get patriotism and you want to support someone from your country, but you're just taking the piss, and especially with the WBC being, I know all the sanctioning bodies have their own, faults and corruption involved, but with the WBC being the most prestigious belt, shall we say, you expect a bit more, and they've just kind of just got on their knees and just, kissed his ass a bit too much in this, and then there needs to be, like I said, there needs to be a punishment, but there's not going to be. So I don't know why I'm getting worked up about it. But the reality is, it's just I'm not happy with it at all, and I think it's just a farce. That's probably the best word for it.
Yeah, completely. It's a very fair summary when you say it should all be about the end result. I mean, still with my glass half full hat, I'll say that at least the end result is that the first fight didn't, the rematch didn't happen immediately. But, nevertheless, it's not satisfactory that it just takes place in September. September is not a very long way away.
The question is, Tom, I guess from what you're saying there about the rematch taking place anyway, is would it have been better for the rematch to just take place now? Or is it better that it takes place a whole year after the first one when Golovkin's another year older? That's the other question.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's probably in Canelo's favour, isn't it?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. He's going to end up winning that fight now. For better or worse, he's going to win that fight, and then it's going to just be a shitstorm, isn't it, really? But it is what it is. We've got to accept it.
I think you're spot on. Cheers for that, Sherry. I think that's a good summary, mate. 120 people watching live. Less than 1 in 3 have clicked that thumbs up button. Please do so. Support what we're doing. It will mean a few more join us as we're going live tonight. Let me bring Paul in, mate. Paul, let's talk Vargas Martirosyan before we come on to the Canelo fight. Look, we've discussed the obvious about the fact he's from a different weight class. On his day, clearly not a bad fighter, not in GGG's class, but not a bad fighter. Can you make any case for this being, even a 10% decent fight?
Well, yeah, it's a great fight, mate. I think Martirosyan's going to beat him. No, I mean, look, it's fucking awful, isn't it? I mean, he's fucking coming off a 2-year. I mean, and he's coming off a fucking loss. I mean, how this is. I mean, can you imagine if he did fucking win? I mean, quite obviously he won't. On his day, he's not a bad fighter. He's, if you were to look at it in pound for pound terms, he's a better fighter than, Spike O'Sullivan or whatever. But I'd have rather have seen Spike O'Sullivan. At least Spike O'Sullivan's a fucking middleweight, It's just, I think it's just ridiculous. To be fair, I think the Derevyanchenko fought last month, I believe. So I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect it's probably Derevyanchenko's people that are sort of saying that can't happen. Do you know what I mean? It's there's not enough time for him to prepare for a fight of that magnitude. And
I believe Derevyanchenko wants it, mate, and it's actually his people campaigning for Golovkin to be stripped.
I mean, I mean, it's easy for them to say that, isn't it? Now that, I mean, the thingy fight's been made, the Martirosyan fight's been made. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what happened with the Spike O'Sullivan, because he was calling for it, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if it was money. I'm guessing it was money.
It was money.
Yeah. I mean,
Apparently, he's going to fight Canelo at some point.
well, I mean, just the whole thing. I'll watch it because I'm a fucking idiot, and I watch any boxing that's available. I'll watch, but and I'm a big fan of Triple G. Anybody that's been watching this podcast from the start knows I'm a big fan of Triple G. But I don't know. I'm sure it's sort of like, Loeffler and the rest of Triple G's people that have kind of like pushed for something this easy, but you would imagine the man himself would have the sort of like enough about him to say, no, do you know what? Because he's got to be thinking about his legacy at this point. I know you guys were saying, regards to Canelo, but it does look like it's more the money. You can't blame him. Boxers have a short shelf life and whatnot. But all the spiel about wanting to unify, and become undisputed is, clearly not his priority, isn't it? Look, Martirosyan's a fucking terrible opponent for Triple G. He really is. He's terrible. He's a terrible opponent. And I thought, isn't there some sort of rule that says you can't fight for a title coming off a loss?
Well, yeah, I presume everything like that is going out the window because of the circumstances. But, there should be many reasons why Vargas Martirosyan can't become a unified middleweight champion.
Well, I mean, if you remember, was it one of the Smiths? It was what's the kid's name? No, I think it was Liam Smith. Oh, I'm not sure. Somebody was fighting for.
Liam Smith had a fight in Spain.
Yeah, Pedraza, and then Sosa.
Yeah, because he was coming off a loss, and so he couldn't fight. Was it Canelo?
No, he couldn't fight. Right? No, he couldn't fight Liam Williams for the eliminator.
Right, yeah. So normally they try and get them to have a fight, and get a win under their belt, so they can. I might be remembering some of this wrong, but I just look, however way you look at it, I think this is hard to defend. It's hard to defend for a guy like Triple G, who, many have top three, if not at the top of the pound for pound list, to be fighting a guy that is just coming off a 2-year layoff, and his last fight was a loss to Erislandy Lara. I mean, I don't know how you defend that, to be completely honest. It's fucking ridiculous. Canelo, the ban, it's a fucking token gesture, isn't it? I mean, I think the only reason he was even, I think the only reason even this is happening was because Triple G started to make a bit of noise about it. Because up until that point, they didn't seem like they were going to be doing anything. If you remember, as soon as was it the day that the failed test was announced? Suleiman and what's your man's name? The WBA guy, another Hispanic name. I forget his name.
Yeah, I don't know the guy's name, but I know who you mean.
Coming out and in support.
Pedrosa, is it? Pedrosa,
I think it might be something like that. It's another Spanish sort of Hispanic sounding name. I forget it right now, but I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I think Canelo, I know he's still popular, but I think it's fading. He's a guy that when I think about, and it's a shame because I like his style. He's the kind of fighter that normally I'd be a massive fan of. Do you know what I mean? But when I think about him, I think about looking like a fucking skeleton on the scales, and everybody just can't figure out how the fuck he's able to drag himself down. I think about dodgy decisions, ridiculous fucking scorecards, fights that a lot of people think he lost. I thought he lost the Trout fight. I thought he won the Lara fight, but just about. I thought Lara just needed to throw a few more punches and he would have won. I thought he lost against Trout. The Floyd scorecard's ridiculous. The Triple G scorecard's ridiculous. And now there's a failed drug test. That's what you fucking think about when you think of Canelo. And I mean, yeah, as a fan of boxing, as a support, I just fucking, I hate this whole situation. I'm fucking like just couldn't be less excited for what potentially is going to happen in September or whatever. It's just whatever, like whatever.
Yeah, it's a sorry state of affairs, and all the excitement has been drained. And I think from a legacy perspective, no matter what happens from this day forth, the hardcore boxing fans will, this will mar their memories of him as a fighter.
Definitely.
Is what it is, I guess. Let me bring in Tom. I know Tom's a big Martirosyan fan. Tom been with us from day one of the pod. Can you make a case for your boy, Tom?
Look, I don't mind this fight. I don't know why people are getting so up in arms about it, to be honest with you. It's a short notice fight. When AJ Pulev fight fell apart and Takam brought in, I don't mind it. Martirosyan is a very
heavyweight, mate. Though, sorry to interrupt.
but these people, they move up weights as they get older. Like Martirosyan is he is like probably still like, he went he did very well against Jermell Charlo, who's people think is like 1 or 2 in this. That was a very close fight. So I think he's like a very high end 154 fighter. Definitely top 10 154, I would say. And he's just stepping up a weight. Look, it's the last minute. It's a total of goosefuck. It's weird to me. It's like, because all these Canelo fans like Sherry, they're coming out and they're giving out about this fight. They finally have something to give out about.
Can I just say it was Jermell Charlo that you fought, not Jamal, not the one that's moved up to middleweight. It was the other one.
I know, yeah. I know.
All right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know which name is which, but the one at 154, yeah. So for me, Martirosyan is a very good 154 fighter, like a top 10 154 fighter. When it comes to that IBF one, the IBF mandatory, as far as I'm aware, wasn't called before the Canelo one. And your man, his manager, the fellow who's Deontay Wilder's manager as well. What's his name?
Lou DiBella,
promoter. Yeah. He's been trying to call for it, and maybe they're getting it called. But it's, to me, it's not like Derevyanchenko actually wants that fight right now. I don't believe that. It's a way of stripping a title and getting your hands on a title. That's, to me, what's most likely, or getting the next shot at the winner, which could be Canelo. So that's probably what they're pushing. I think 6 months is definitely Canelo's lucky to get it. When it comes to the rematch, I don't care for it. Didn't care for before the drugs failed test. Care even less now. So I think Canelo is lucky, because I was listening to some stuff, and apparently the clenbuterol in the next year or two, it's likely to come in that there will be a hair test for WADA will bring in a hair test to confirm whether clenbuterol was processed by eating fake meat, or whether you're taking it as a part of a drug cycle, PD cycle. So Canelo is lucky he only got caught now, because if it was in a year or two's time, he would have got a long ban and everybody'd know what he was at.
Yeah. No, I hear you, Tom. Definitely. From your perspective, I know it's kind of getting deep and meaningful, but from a legacy perspective, does Canelo have a legacy in your mind after all of this stuff surrounding his career?
Well, I think he is a drugs cheat, so I don't like drugs cheats. Like, Tyson Fury was we go back to the early episodes of this, and I said a couple of times Tyson Fury was my favorite fighter. Now I can't stand him. I think he's full of shit, right? And Canelo, I didn't like much. I thought he was extremely overrated and a protected fighter. And this is just makes it even worse, Canelo is one of those fighters that's kind of like, for me, like Cotto, who's a very good fighter, but not elite. If you look at who's Cotto's best win, you know, like, and look at who's Canelo's best win. You know, they don't have any good wins. Top
Canelo's
level.
best win would probably be Cotto or
like maybe Lara in a very close fight, which I thought Canelo won. But like, you know, he's not elite like Floyd or Manny. He wasn't running through guys who were the same size as him. He wasn't like beating other elite fighters in their prime. The only elite fighter he fought in his prime was Floyd, and he got schooled by a smaller man. So like, I think a resume like Canelo's is a mirage. It's like Floyd Mayweather's resume, but at least Floyd was elite. You know, Cotto is similar. Cotto fought Mosley and these guys on the way down and scraped narrow points victories. You know, the best fights Cotto, for example, was ever in was probably those ones at 140 where he had some tear-ups with Torres and some of these guys. So I just never like Canelo, and this makes me like him less.
Understood. Right, guys, we've spent enough time dwelling on that topic. I'm going to move on to some other news items. I'm just going to throw them out. And, I won't go to one panelist in particular. Anyone can jump in. So the first one I wanted to talk about, and this isn't really a news item, but it's one I wanted to throw out there, is about James DeGale. So I think the consensus seems to be that James DeGale is either at a point where he should retire or has one meaningful fight left in him, in a fight where he'll probably get big money and lose. My question is, how do we assess James DeGale's career today? I can't make up my mind. If this is a guy who, is one of Britain's better world champions, or if this is a guy who lost to George Groves, beat hugely overrated fighters in the likes of Marco Antonio Periban, Brandon Gonzalez, Andre DeGale, and then struggled against an aging Butte, a Porky Medina who was then knocked out by Benavidez, a Caleb Truax who's been stopped a few times at middleweight. I can't work out if James DeGale is an elite fighter who's got old overnight, or if I maybe was guilty of overrating him massively 2 or 3 years ago. Where do you stand on that?
I think, sorry lads, I jumped there. I think he was an elite fighter. I don't think he got old overnight, though. I mean, you got to trace it back to 2015 when he won the title. He won it in, I think, May 2015, wasn't it, against Durrell in Brooklyn? Yeah. And then you got to bear in mind, then the night that Fury won the title, he fought Butte. And every fight from the Durrell fight that he's been in has been a fight where he's made it hard for himself, if that makes sense. He's had wars with guys that he just didn't need to have wars with. He fought to their kind of level, if that makes sense. I would never have thought, as good as Badu Jack has been getting, I would never have thought that would have been that type of fight before when that fight was announced. A lot of people would have said, James DeGale should win. Not saying easily, but I didn't think it would be that much of a fight of the year type fight. He's kind of done himself an injustice in a lot of ways throughout his title reign, and that's not saying he's had a bad reign, because he's fought them all in their comfort zone. He went to Canada to fight Butte, he went to America to fight Durrell, he fought Porky Medina, for God's sake, he fought that guy, and he made it into a war for no reason. Again, it's a lack of boxing IQ, and I know that might sound silly, but it's the fact that he can't differentiate when to actually box and when to get in there and show he's a tough guy. That's what it is for me, and that's why he'd probably lose to someone like Chris Eubank, not because they're on the same level in boxing acumen, because they're not. James DeGale is an Olympian, a gold medalist. Granted, that was 10 years ago, but that's why someone like Chris Eubank would have a very, very serious chance of beating him, because James DeGale would fight to his level and allow him to take advantage of this macho man and overconfidence that he has. And I think you've stated in one of your videos, BG, that you think that he's too confident in himself, and then at this point he's coming to the end of his career. I think if he gets in there with George Groves, if he gets in there with especially Groves, I think Groves, even with the fact that we think Groves has regressed in his own rights, I think Groves will smash into pieces at this point. I think what's his name, Gilberto Ramirez, and then Benavidez. he doesn't belong with those guys now. I think the only guy who's got a real chance of beating out of the world champions is Groves, but I don't think he beats him. I think he's in a very, very tricky position. You got the Jose, who's cat guy, is mandatory. He's the interim champion, isn't he? So he's have to face him. I don't know if he can win that fight. That would be a Caleb Truax 2.0, but he's a better fighter. That was cat guy, and he's a super middleweight, so he'd get smashed up there again. So it is a very tough one. I would love to see him and George Groves, have one more fight. I think that's overdue, if anything. But I think James DeGale has pretty much got one or two fights left, and I think he doesn't even need to retire. But I think he was elite. But I think throughout his title reign, he fought to his opponent's level without giving himself enough kind of credit for what he could have done if he used his brain. He didn't use his brain. He fought on heart and overconfidence, and he kind of diminished his ability, because at the end of the day, the more wars you're in, the quicker your career comes to an end. And that's kind of caught up to him in his last 4 or 5 fights, and I think it's gonna, when it's all said and done, is gonna look back and think, every fight that I had during my first title reign, I was coming out with cuts and bruises and bust up face for reasons that aren't really valid. He didn't need to put himself in that position, but he did, and he's gonna regret that when it's all said and done. So I think he is pretty much coming to the end now.
It's so hard to work out a peak for him, though. I mean, you could say he peaked before he won the world title, but the opposition was pretty terrible. Then you could say he peaked against Andre Dirrell. But again, Dirrell has, had a complete career collapse subsequently. And then, after that, you've got a succession of subpar performances where he's straight through. I mean, it's so hard to work out where his actual peak came from, but
definitely. But and I think with James DeGale, BG, I think another thing is this whole thing of he starts really fast the first 2 or 3 rounds, and then he has 7 rounds where he's just on the ropes or he's not doing anything. That has been a consistent thing. And I remember before he fought Badu Jack, when he did that interview with Coogan in Vegas, and he lifted his shirt up and he said, "Look at my body. You've never seen me look like this. I've taken this fight so seriously." And what happened? The same thing happened in that fight. He was on fire the first 3, 4 rounds, and after that, for maybe 5 or 6 rounds, he was a lot slower, and he did the same thing of just languishing on the ropes and not really boxing to the best of his ability. And he's a guy, I think when we look back, ultimately, yes, he's a gold medalist and he's a 2-time world champion now. But I think we will kind of look back and say he did kind of underachieve and undersell himself at points. Because even with the extra strength and conditioning he did for the Badu Jack fight, I mean, and the way he looked, he did look, for me, that is the best he's looked and the best fitness he probably showed. But again, he's always had that thing where he slows down for 5 or 6 rounds, where he just totally does nothing, and that's a consistent pattern throughout his, the last 5, 6 fights, and he just, I don't know, man. It's a shame for James DeGale. He's a guy who I love to watch, but he's not the same fighter. He's definitely not the same fighter. And I don't think we're going to see that peak version of him again. I think he's done.
Yep, I certainly can't see him returning to form in the manner he'd need to beat the top guys. Paul, Tom, anything to add on that?
I mean, I think just a couple of things. Periban and sort of like Brandon Gonzalez, whoever the guy was before Brandon Gonzalez, I forget the guy's name now. I think that's probably his peak. Dirrell, he looked good against Dirrell, but I'm not sure he is elite. I mean, like, it depends how you sort of like how you gauge elite, what is elite. He does things that look elite, but if you look at his overall game and the fact that he, like Sherry was just saying, takes the rounds off, and his temperament, I question his temperament, and I think all of those things come into play when you look at an elite fighter. I think an elite fighter can sort of like can minimize their downsides and sort of like make up for some of their shortcomings and whatnot. He's not a fighter that can do that. Do you know what I mean? He like gets into wars when he doesn't need to. That's a big shortcoming for me. I agree though. I don't think we will ever see. I don't think he's going to sort of do it Groves and surprise people by winning another. I know he's just won his titles back or whatever, but if he goes up against any of those, even like Caleb Plant, but I think Benavidez will absolutely murder him. But that's murder. I mean, like, I really do. I don't think he's on that level anymore at all. Not at all.
What do you think he should do? Do you think he should retire, or do you think he should try and get one last big pay-per-view fight, a Groves rematch, perhaps a Callum Smith fight, perhaps even a Eubank fight?
But exactly that. I think Groves will beat Callum Smith, which will then make Callum Smith slightly less attractive of a prospect. I think the Groves fight's there for him again, and a Eubank fight. Eubank, is a name and sells tickets. And then retire. That's what I think. A couple of domestic, big fights for him, and then retire. That's what I would see. He's got a title, so I think guys will be seeing what we see, which is a guy that's there for the taking now, very clearly. And so guys that perhaps wouldn't have took this fight before, like a Eubank, will look at him now and think, I can drag this guy into a war and just beat him up on the inside, and he hasn't, he hasn't got it in him to sort of do much about it these days. That's what I think, and so that's the route he'll probably go, I think.
Yeah, it depends on his circumstances financially, but if he can, I'd like to see him retire, because what a terrible ending to his career it would be to see him knocked out by a Eubank, or even from his own perspective by a Groves, given the animosity and the history between those two. And if he fights on, I think he'll get beaten up by a guy like this Cats guy. I think he'll get really beaten up, and it's not what you want to see for a guy like DeGale, Olympic gold medalist, considered a great champion, considered number one in his division. It seems to have left him overnight, really.
I don't know though. I don't know. I don't really like DeGale that much. He comes across as a bit of a wanker, to be completely honest. And I don't know. There's a part of me that, this is going to sound terrible, and I'll probably get some stick for this. There's a part of me that quite likes the idea of somebody that is really a big mouth and really sort of quite arrogant, which is how I see James DeGale, taking a bit of a hiding. There's part of me that wouldn't mind seeing that, because over the years he has come, kind of like how he's come across to me a little bit as a little bit of a tosser, to be completely honest. Yeah,
I've always been. He doesn't come across well. I personally have always been a fan of him. I've enjoyed his style, etc. And I guess my worry is that the longer he goes on, the more risks there are to him in terms of his future. And it's a frustrating end to his career for me. I mean, we should, I'm speaking very, very negatively. He did just win a world title in a rematch. He's got his world title back. He is a two-time world champion. From a DeGale perspective, he's probably thinking, I'm back. I'm good to go for these mega fights. So maybe I am looking at it very, very negatively. But for me, that second fight was even more of a sign that he should end his career than the first fight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's won his world title back. Great. There's been times in the past where guys have won their world titles back, and I remember your favourite fighter, Mr. Cleverly, did it as well, where he kind of won his title. Yeah, sorry.
When he knocked out Broner, you mean?
Yeah. That dazzling performance there. Yeah, I remember us all talking about it afterwards, feeling a little bit weird that we're actually talking about him as kind of probably done, even though he just won a title. And then obviously Baddy Jack comes and just absolutely just seals the deal and takes his fucking soul away from him, I don't know. DeGale. I mean, look, that second fight. I mean, look, let's be honest. We're talking about this is what we're talking about here. Is DeGale elite? That's the question, isn't it? If he was, would he be sort of beaten once and then taken life and death again by Caleb Truex? Let's be honest. If you know what you're looking at, I'm talking about eye test. I'm not even talking about the fact that he'd been knocked out at middleweight. If you know what you're looking at when you look at Caleb Truex, he's the kind of fighter that an elite fighter should just be fucking schooling. He should just be absolutely schooling and perhaps stopping. So, yeah, I mean, that's not a good sign for me.
Sorry, Paul, quick question for you, mate. I mean, obviously you said you don't think he's elite. I mean, I think me and BG said we've had points where he was elite. I mean, what's your opinion of Nito Donaire? Do you think he's obviously not elite now, but do you think he was elite 5 years ago when he was one of the pound top 3? Or do you think he's just lucky?
I think Nito Donaire was elite at one point.
I think that's what Tom's saying and I'm saying is that James DeGale had a point where he was elite, but he's fallen off, hasn't he? And obviously for you, it's a matter of you've never thought he was elite. Is that what it is?
I think he did. This is what I mean. I think he did things that kind of like looked elite. He did some of the things that you would expect from an elite fighter, but just had some holes in his game that kind of made him slightly less than, for me.
I think one thing that works against him automatically is, especially his last few fights, is the lack or the completely non-existent jab. There's no jab. I think he threw 4 jabs against Badou Jack. I remember that standing out as a stat that kind of alarming. If you're an elite fighter, I think you need to have a jab at the bare minimum. So he's definitely not. He's not elite at this point, because if he's not throwing a jab, then he's going to go life and death. You're only going to throw your hooks, aren't you, really? And you're going to make it tough for yourself. But I think that kind of sums it up.
Definitely. I mean, I think, you know, somebody like Donaire, if you like think of like you know, the Donaire at bantamweight. Do you remember the Montiel fight where we knocked him out that left hook, and inexplicably the fucking ref like let Montiel carry on, and Montiel was fucking all over the shop. Like, I've never watched a fight and thought, how is the ref letting this carry on? Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, so like that Donaire was elite for me.
But he's not now, is he? He's fallen off, hasn't he? It's good time.
He's not now. I know we'll probably come on to this at a certain point, given that he's fighting at the weekend.
Oh yeah, shit, he's fighting.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes. Tom, anything to add on DeGale, or are you staying quiet, mate?
I think people are being very harsh on DeGale. DeGale went on the road. He consistently fought top guys, like most British fighters don't. He was probably the top British fighter for a couple of years. I think one of the main reasons why he struggled is because I'm sure he's got an injury to his left. He can't not be able to throw a jab. And when you're not able to throw a jab, you're not going to be able to keep pressure off you. So I just think that I'd say he's probably been fighting with you know, you can't win an Olympic gold medal and not be able to throw a jab. You just can't. You can't get that far. So like I think that he's probably. Sorry,
David Price.
He didn't win the Olympic gold, and he can't throw a jab. No, yeah. So, but like, you know, so he's obviously, I think, a very talented boxer with flaws. I wouldn't be surprised if injuries have severely affected him. But apart from that, I think his resume is one of the best of any British fighter has. So,
what, in history or currently?
Current crop, like the last 5-10 years, he's got a great resume. So, like, I think, like, you look at Carl Froch struggled with, like, Andre Durrell. I thought Froch lost against Andre Durrell. I think most fair-minded people think Carl Froch was lucky to get that win. You know, DeGale won that, you know, about 2 or 3 clear rounds, and probably should have won it by more if he hadn't have sat in his arse for a few rounds.
It wasn't the same Durrell, though, was it?
Well, I don't know. I think Durrell showed a lot of heart in that fight.
Yeah, but he
showed heart, but the ability wasn't there.
By Abraham, and he'd been inactive for years.
Well, I don't know. Like
6 years in between those fights.
No, there's not.
6 years between Froch and DeGale. DeGale was 2015, and he fought Froch in 2009.
Wow. Jeez, you're right. I didn't know it was that far.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ. I actually didn't know that. Yeah.
Super 6 was 2009 to 2011, wasn't it? 2 years?
Yeah. Well, like, Badou Jack is shown to be a top quality fighter, you know, and DeGale drew with Jack, and, you know, he deserved to draw with Jack. You know, I think James is like, and he's got great fighting heart. That's the thing. He's got more heart than most fighters. Like, you know, against that last round of Badou Jack, every other fighter, like probably every other British fighter, would have gone on their ass and got knocked down in that last round. And probably been lucky to get up off the ground, and they would have lost that fight. And DeGale somehow managed to stay on his feet and win that fight. So like, DeGale,
he got knocked down. He did get knocked down. He was on his ass, but he got up.
Oh, was he? Okay. Are you sure he got knocked down the last round? He wasn't just battered from pillar to post. No. Was he not just battered from pillar to post in that last round? Did he actually manage to?
No, I think he dropped him.
He got dropped as well. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but like a lot of people would have been stopped then in that round. I kind of misremembered it, but like he showed great heart in that, you know. And again, I think with him, he's truth was it four jabs or something in that fight. Like, you know, an Olympic gold medalist. Now I think he landed 4 jabs, was it, or did he just throw 4 or 5 jabs?
I think he landed 4. But the point is, he never threw any. That's the point.
Yeah, but I think he's not able. I think there's something wrong with his left hand that he's not able to. Or is he southpaw? He's southpaw, isn't he? So like,
it's his right arm that he had.
His right arm. Yeah, and I think there's something wrong with him. He's not able to throw a jab properly. So it's like, you know, imagine. Let's just assume he's not able to throw a jab properly. He's still fighting at the fucking top 11 and balls in it out.
Yeah, 100%. So 100%. Yeah.
And he's done it on the road. And look. James DeGale, he can be cocky and arrogant and all that stuff, but like when it gets to it in the ring, he lays it on the line. Like if you think about it, like with him, like I thought like as well when he fought George Groves, I thought he won that George Groves fight as well, and he beat Badu Jack he drew Badu Jack who beat George Groves. So it's like we have to rate him at least the same as George Groves, and I would say higher because he's never been stopped. He's never been knocked out. He's won. He's a 2-time champion, and he's defended a load of times against good quality opposition, much better opposition than George Groves has. So I would put him ahead of George Groves. And to be honest with you, if he was injury free, he probably could have been the standout super middleweight in the world. But I don't think he was ever elite, to be honest, because maybe he had the ability to be elite, but maybe his injuries held him back. But, you know, I don't think he was ever a top 10 pound for pound fighter. Maybe top 20.
I mean, I can't disagree with any of you. And this is where I've had this big problem with trying to assess DeGale on my videos on this channel. I think the case that Irish Tom makes is very convincing. I also think you could make a logical case that he was very overrated and actually has a very overrated resume. And then I also think you could make the case that he was elite and it got beaten out of him over the course of that DeGale and Badu Jack fight, you know, and he got all over.
I think there is a bit of that in the Badu Jack fight. Like there's a bit of that, but also apparently he's always out boozing or out clubbing and not looking after himself as well. So I'm sure that plays into a little bit of it. But the thing is, look at what Badu Jack did to Cleverly.
Yeah, we don't like let's not talk about that.
Let's talk about no, you know, like he went up there and he bet the living shit out of Cleverly. For 5 rounds. And like James DeGale drew with him. So like and Clev, while he wasn't, you know, the greatest fighter in the world, he wasn't shit.
Tom, you want to be careful for 4 years. Tom, you want to be careful there, mate, because as far as gossip's concerned, that fight actually never happened. So if you continue the way you're going, I can see you getting kicked off of this podcast. I don't know. Gossip talking about Cleverly like that, the boy from the valleys like that. Fucking hell.
Gossip is going to start malfunctioning and wondering if he's been in a time machine that Clev's got beaten. He's just getting ready for the Kovalev fight in his mind.
And it's too late, mate.
There. Too harsh. Well, I don't know if you guys saw about the BG Hall of Fame. It's launching. I don't know if any of you clocked the thumbnail on that one.
I did. I saw it. I was like, oh, he's not, is he? I was thinking there's a good chance he will.
There you go. Funnily enough, that Nathan Cleverly's come up some very odd and bizarre tweets coming from the Twitter account of Nathan Cleverly this week. Let's just hope that all is well with Mr. Cleverly and joking apart. I hope that he's okay in his retirement, really.
What was it? What were the tweets saying?
It's very, very bizarre tweets, not really saying a lot, mate, but just the tweets of a person in a very confused place, I would suggest. But
not good.
But there you go. Let's talk about some of the other news, and I'll move it on at quite a pace because I've got to be off by 10:30 or before tonight. So we don't necessarily have to discuss these items in a huge depth. But Lenroy Thomas versus Joe Joyce, I quite like the fight, guys.
Yeah, good fight. Good fight there. I think Joe Joyce will beat him. I think Lenroy's a bit small for him.
Yeah, I think Joyce will grind him out of there, but I think it's a really, really good fight for a fourth fight. And yeah, I think Lenroy could make Joyce look bad in spells before being stopped, is my take. Anyone else got any comments on that one?
Yeah, I think he's going to smash him up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be. I just think it's all wrong for Lenroy Thomas. Hopefully, he's getting good money. I think Big Joycey is going to just brutalize him and put a beating on him. I'm trying to check. Is that been confirmed yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the hay belly.
Let's go look at these odds, lads. Let me see. So what's his name? Joyce.
Thomas and Joe Joyce.
Oh, there's no odds up for it yet. Okay.
No,
that says it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I imagine Joe Joyce will be an overwhelming favourite, won't he?
Yeah.
What odds did you get? Would he be 1 to 4?
I'd guess like 1-6, 1-7.
Okay, that. Wow.
That would be my guess. If you look at even David Allen was that sort of price, wasn't he, against Lenroy Thomas? So I suspect that could be a fairly one-sided one. I think it'll be a relatively early stoppage, I must say. But we'll have to see.
Tom, cleverly has deleted his account. You know that.
I was just searching that. He's deleted his Twitter account. Yeah. So something's gone on. Lots of people tweeting about it.
Yeah, he's getting a bit of support, which is nice to see. I hope he is all right, at least.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, from my understanding, he was someone who was very sensible with money during his time as a boxer. He started buying properties at quite a young age and is extremely successful financially outside of boxing. So it may just be one of those cases where when somebody, lacks the discipline of the sport and the training and the limelight, it gets to them. But hopefully it was just someone on his account being a bit of a muppet.
Possibly, and that would explain him deleting it as well, wouldn't it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Lads, sorry to interrupt, Paul.
You're right, mate.
Okay, go on. I'll tell you the odds now in a minute.
Oh, go on. Have you got the odds for Joyce Thomas?
Yeah. What do you reckon now, Joe Joyce?
I'm saying 1-6.
Okay. Any other takers? What do you reckon, Paul?
I'm not really a betting man. So,
what percentage chance do you give Joe Joyce a winning?
85.
What do you, Paul?
70, 75.
Sherry?
I'll go all the way, 100%. He's not losing. I don't think Lenroy's in the.
Well, you're the closest. He's 1 to 33.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? And 12 to 1, Lenroy Thomas. Fucking hell.
When is it? It's on the
5th of May.
Right, which is how long away? It's not far.
5th of May.
Yeah, so he's not had a lot of time to even train for it. Even if you do assume he might have took that fight seriously, yeah, it's probably fucking quite accurate then, actually, isn't it? Might be worth a punt if anybody's got the balls, though.
Yeah, I think
I don't think anybody cares.
Yeah, that's a good point, Cherry. I don't think anybody probably does, to be fair.
Okay. to be honest, I almost want to browse over this one until we have more confirmation about the opponent. But Tyson Fury return is confirmed at the Manchester Arena. Opponent TBA. Frank Warren did come out and confirm today that the fight would not be on pay-per-view, which is very, very good news. Sky Bet have launched a market, which I covered yesterday, where they have Gary Cornish, Kevin Johnson, and Safir Safiri, no, me neither, as his most likely return opponents. Paul, please, the day is finally on us.
Say again, mate.
Pleased that the day of the return is finally on us.
Yeah, definitely. Safiri, I actually do know a little. I don't know. I mean, didn't he fight Manuel Char?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that fight, and he's small, fucking like really small. I mean, like he looks small even compared to Char, and Char's what, like 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah. He's not a heavyweight.
And in that fight, he looked like a fucking super middleweight next to Manuel Char. And I would imagine Manuel Char would probably look like a middleweight next to Tyson Fury. So I don't know what kind of a look that would be in the ring. But yeah, good. Glad that he's going to be back in the ring. Fucking a little bit like Irish, less interested now that we kind of like know he's a treat. He's a cheat. The speed with which he's like, I mean, I don't know. It's not making any accusation or anything. I would just say the speed with which he's lost his weight is ever so slightly dubious to me. And having been off for that long and put your body through that, certainly what we know of just what he admitted, sniffing and all of that stuff, like I doubt whether we're going to get the same fighter back. I hope I'm wrong, but I doubt it, to be completely honest. I don't think you really come back the same after stuff like that. Very rare, very rare.
Yeah, I mean, some of the early whispers about his sparring is that he's in ridiculously good form.
Yeah.
And again, you know, the PR is always going to be one way, isn't it? And I guess the test will be in the ring.
Well, I see a Hatman video where Hatman, and I remember this actually when Tyson came out of jail, and there was the same stuff around him then, you know, he's fucking quicker than ever, he's better than ever, and he weren't, you know, as soon as he stepped up, you know, he took a hammering, didn't he? So, I mean, not to say that's gonna happen to Tyson. Tyson Fury now. I mean, he's young at least. He's got age on his side, and just the way he fights and his height might sort of like, you know, Tyson was small and sort of like he was right there. If he's going to get hide, he's going to get hide. And I think Tyson can sort of like hide his chin a lot better in the ring, you know. And so, you know, we'll see what happens when he comes back. But yeah, it's good that he's back for, you know, just for entertainment purposes. It's nice to have him back because, God, some of the best press conferences I've ever seen have involved Mr. Fury. So yeah, good thing that he's back, man. Definitely.
Yeah. Anyone else?
No.
Let's move it on to discuss.
Sorry. What were we talking about there? Were we talking about?
Fury coming back.
Fury's return.
Okay, I want to talk about Tyson Fury coming back. Yeah, I want to talk about him coming back. I want to talk about that press conference he had last week. I from going from him being the biggest fan of, like, I was my favorite fighter. Fury is full of shit. He is completely full of shit. Did you hear? Yeah,
Tom. Any negativity? Please step out the door, mate. We don't want to hear it.
No,
Tyson Fury, positive only, or we're going to turn this and get you.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
Sorry, I didn't get the joke. I'm so slow. God damn it. Very good.
I know what you're going to say, and do you know what? I thought it was unfortunate he didn't address that topic. when it was raised.
Yeah, you shouldn't be saying that.
Closed it down wasn't the best look.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's. Do you remember all the interviews we had over the last few years and all the bullshit about how they've done me dirty and blah blah blah, and how Everton, I never took a drug, I never did anything like that. Do you remember all that bullshit?
Do you remember the conspiracy against him?
The conspiracy. Do you remember Peter Fury saying the truth's going to come out? We can't talk now because it's in the courts with the lawyers. Blah 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 blah. And now what are the Furies saying? Oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want negativity.
They probably got
like fuck that. He's never. But they can talk about whatever they want. They fail the test. They don't have any. Yeah. It's not like UCAD is going to stop them from saying I took the drugs. Or like the thing is with Fury and these boys, the levels of the thing that was in Fury's blood was like it's one of these just. That it was 10 times the threshold for failing that test is 10 times the maximum recorded at the Nagano Olympics for nandrolone. Okay, so 10 times higher is the limit, and Fury was well over that limit. I think he was close to double that limit. 20 times the natural rate of nandrolone. No, never explained. All the bullshit that was taught from them. How about it's going to come out in the wash, how he's looking all teary-eyed and saying, oh, they've done me. And now he comes out with that bullshit. He is as fucking big a jug cheat as Povetkin or any of these guys. And I hope AJ schools him. Even though I have my suspicions about AJ, I prefer to see somebody I suspect of cheating win over somebody that actually has been caught and done dirty and doesn't even want to talk about it, won't even address a question. I think it's a fucking disgrace. I think it's a disgrace. No, he hasn't come out and addressed that fail less than anyone else. He denied it and said he was a conspiracy, and now he won't even address it now the conspiracy's over. And all this thing, he talks about like how he's comes from the depths of depression and depths of all this. I'm extremely skeptical of Tyson Fury. Anything that comes out of his mouth. The man got caught before the Vladimir Klitschko fight. He got caught for the hammer fight. So he was drug cheating for the Klitschko fight, as in he still had the benefits of the drug cheating he did prior. So his win is tainted. And after that, he didn't go crazy off tearing it up because it was all quiet. He only went boozing it up after the result thing came out. He went on the tear and went and fucking did drugs and went on the piss for 2 years. And now he's saying, "Oh, I'm a changed man. I've come out of my depression." It's because his band's up and now he's got fit and he's going to be coming back making money. I can't believe a word out of a man's mouth. I just think he's the biggest. Like I used to enjoy his shtick, and now I just think he's a complete fucking rat. I don't want to look at him and I don't want to listen to him. I think he's as bad as people. All this stuff that people are giving Canelo. British fans don't give Tyson Fury a 1/10 of what Canelo is getting. 1/10, and people saying they're happy to see him back. So it's like fuck Tyson Fury. I hope he gets his arse handed to him, and he's not a 10th of fighter he was beforehand. And
I think the best way
to say is that opponent. Sorry, Sherry. That opponent. What's his name again, Tom?
Sefer Safiri.
Let me just add. It certainly hasn't been announced that is
but
favourite in the market.
Yeah, but I mean, did anybody see the Eddie Hearn interview where Eddie Hearn talks about when they were talking about signing him and whatnot? And he says to Coogan, he says, he told me he wanted to fight this guy, and then he wanted 50-50 for the AJ fight. And he said some of the opponents he was asking to fight, I'd never heard of, and you could probably beat them. Well, that for me kind of like tells me that it probably is this fucking guy, Safiri. I mean, if it is, where him being top of the fucking sort of like the most, he's top of the betting, isn't he? Is he still?
Yeah, and I honestly think he, the reason he is top end of the betting is because he is very likely. Because if you look at all the other guys in the market, they're guys who you would realistically place in that position in the market. They're names that make sense. He's a name that makes literally no sense whatsoever, that no one's ever heard of. So for him to be at the top of the market, the weight of the money that must have been on him tells you that there must be someone out there who's heard more than a whisper.
There's got to be. And I tell you what, if that is the opponent, given that, yeah, he was beaten by Manuel Chow. Now I thought he did quite well in that Manuel Chow fight. He was throwing a lot more punches than Chow, and Chow looked terrible. But if you consider that Bradis fucking knocked Manuel Chow out, like as an opponent, I know he's fucking been off for 2 years and whatnot, but it's fucking. Would you guys say this is worse than Mark Demori as an opponent for a comeback?
I haven't seen the guy fight, but I had at least heard of Mark Demori, and Mark Demori was at least a heavyweight.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, yeah.
I would say, Paul, the one thing I'd say is that, like, David Hay may have been out for a similar length of time, but he didn't put 10 stone on. And, you know, it doesn't matter how skillful or what your natural athletic ability is, going doing a shitload of cocaine, fucking, what else was he? People were giving him ketamine. Like, he was spotted partying, like proper partying. And you can't be going out and doing that shit for 2 years. And coming back. Your body is going to be messed up. It's going to take him years to get back to even a semblance of what he was. So, like, you know, not trying to make a case where Tyson Fury is, but like if I was coming back and I was him after going out in 3 years on the lash, you'd have to be literally, you're not going to be fighting anybody with a pulse for a good long time, because, you know, training is training, but getting in the ring and you're getting punched back in the face against an elite fighter.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, to be honest, it bolsters your sort of like, and I don't want to go on another rant now, but like sometimes I don't stop to think about these things. It's fucking like he's saying in interviews, well, I could fucking fight for the title tomorrow, I could fight AJ tomorrow, and then if that does turn out to be like who he's fighting, it's like, which is it, man? Come on, you know, it's like
that AJ thing was always absolute nonsense. You know, I know that that's still referred to, but that was never, you know, even
never serious.
The realms of possibility. Yeah,
that's just. I think, lads, I'll sum it up for you. Doesn't matter what we say, right? The reality is, whether we think he's a drug cheat or not, Tyson Fury is the man who beat the man. He hasn't got the belt anymore, but he's a champion. So whatever you say means fuck all. So let's move on.
We'll
Irish. Move on. Sorry, mate. Tyson Fury's still the man. Sorry.
Shut up. You can't wait for Canelo to come back so you can call Canelo the man.
I'm only joking. Oh my god, the Canelo obsession he's got. Oh my god.
And all those people out there who say Tyson Fury is still the man, is like it's joking, pathetic. I know, but there is loads of people out there.
Yeah,
and it's pathetic. Like, he's so far from being the man, because he's like, you can't look who he's fighting and compared to who AJ and Wilder are fighting and tell me he's the man.
No, of course. I mean, look, there's always going to be the argument that he is the man, beat the man, which is fine. But that's in its own place. He hasn't capitalized on that. He's been out the ring for 5 years, so it means nothing at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, like Tom's right. There are people that will still say that, and it's fucking ridiculous. What? So you can like be the man that beat the man and then go away for as long as you like and come back? You know, it's like Canelo was the lineal middleweight champion going into the fucking Triple G fight. Did anybody actually think Canelo was the man at fucking 160? No. It's of limited fucking relevance, isn't it? And certainly at this point, after you've been out for this long and done what Tyson Fury's done, it means absolutely nothing. At the minute, the man at heavyweight is AJ until somebody else starts to compile those sort of names on their resume or beats him. That's it. I mean, lineal means very little at this point.
I've never liked the idea of the lineal champ. You know, for me, it's a weak metric. And I said this in my video at the time. whilst in theory it's a strong idea, the lineal champ, the idea that someone can go away for 3 or 4 years and hold the division hostage because they're the lineal champ is ridiculous. I completely agree. AJ is the man. What I would say, if Fury comes back and beats some relevant contenders, then yeah, I think there should be some legit suggestion that AJ should fight Fury, but we're not at that point yet.
Nope, nowhere near.
Agreed.
Let's move on and let's talk about next week's boxing. And I'm going to start with Khan Lo Greco. The reason I'm going to start with Khan Lo Greco is because I want to ask Seri, does the recent Canelo Alvarez saga make you think that Amir Khan was robbed in that fight?
Of course not. You got knocked spark out. There's no robbery.
Yeah.
I mean, look, even if he was on something, let's say he was, would it have made in terms of the outcome was didn't we? Anyone like me or people who actually like him, all, wishful thinking that he would have outboxed him because he's not capable of sticking to a game plan for that, especially against a guy, as big and strong and as elite as Canelo is. Irish Tom will agree. But you get my point. Yeah, Canelo's too big, too strong. And obviously, it's one of those things. Khan's not the brightest guy out there. So when people put a question to him, they know they're going to get something that, a bit outlandish. And of course, Khan can claim that potentially he was on something. And maybe he was, we'll never know. But I don't think he was at that point. The outcome was never really in doubt, was it? So it's about what Khan has to say about that now. It's 2 years backdated. So it's a bit. He got knocked down. Whatever happens now rather than focusing on Canelo.
I mean, I actually do think Canelo was juicing. And I've been questioning Canelo and how the fuck he was able to make 154 for about 3 or 4 years. But
yeah, to be fair, yeah, you're right.
But equally, it wouldn't have made any difference because, like, the thing that undid Khan was the fact that he leaves his chin up in the air and the fact that he can't take a shot on the size of Canelo and the power of Canelo. I think that would have been the same either way. Sorry.
Khan said Canelo put on 35 pounds after the weigh-in.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was that much.
Not that much. Normally, he used to weigh in at 155 and come in anywhere between 170 to 175. But that's what they told us. He would always refuse to get on the scales, wouldn't he? HBO scales. So
and he
we don't know.
Come in at 182 or 184 versus Angulo as well. That was a recorded weight. So, I mean, 35 pounds is a stretch.
That is a stretch, so yeah. I definitely think he's more than 175, but he's not 35 pounds. But you know what? I doubt he was far off, to be fair. I think that might be the one time Khan was actually pretty close to getting the truth.
Yeah. And the fact that he won't get on the scales, I mean, that doesn't look right, does it? Same way Quigg didn't do it for Valdez, it kind of makes you question it. Yeah.
I'd say one thing we can look out for is see if Canelo really struggles to make middleweight now. And if he does try and make middleweight, will he drop a whole load of his muscle? Or will he have to be forced to fight at 168?
And that's the thing as well. People are all sort of like assuming it's a foregone conclusion that Canelo's going to beat Triple G in September. If they are sort of like on him now, and he's not able, and he has been using stuff for years, what's that going to take from him? What effect's that going to have?
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
So, yeah. Anyway, there you go.
The Greco, sorry. What do you make of him as a threat to Khan?
I mean, his only 2 losses were against Spence and Porter, isn't it? And one was on 2 days' notice and one was on...
More recently than that as well, to someone I hadn't heard of.
Oh, was it? Sorry, so there you go. Then, so I clearly don't know. Who did he lose to? Was anyone of note or...
I'll have to box check it. It isn't someone who I knew off the top of my head.
But I think that was a decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, so he's got 3 losses. The more recent one was to a guy called Joseph Elegele, who was 15-2. The loss to Porter and the loss to Spence. But Spence is the only guy who stopped him.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, again, he seems like a fairly durable guy, then we could say that much. Considering the amount of notice he had on that for 2 days as well, and considering what Spencer's gone on to become, I think we can kind of, give him some, cut him a bit of slack on that one because Spencer's a machine, isn't he?
And if anybody saw that fight as well, the Spence fight, Spence put a fucking hiding on him to the body, man. How he I don't know if it's the 5th or the 7th he stopped him, but like there was at least, I want to say 3 to 5 rounds of just hellacious fucking hammering from Spence. So like, I think he is quite durable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Khan's not, a power puncher really, so I don't think he's going to have that sort of success against him. And I think, especially the fact that he's had like 12 weeks or 14 weeks notice, and at the public workout, he looked like he was in good nick. To be fair, he looked in decent shape, so there's not going to be any sort of, problem in that regard, hopefully for him. And the fact that they've kind of given a concession of 150, isn't it? Whether that's for Khan or for him, the weight that they're fighting at is the weigh-in is 150, isn't it? Up to 150, so he's got a bit of leeway there as well. So. I think I don't think it'll be an easy fight by any means, especially when Khan's coming off a devastating knockout in the ring, and whatever your people want to talk about his personal life, that's fine. 101 things that would have mentally kind of drained him out. Not that he has much up there anyway, without him, but I think Khan's past he's always come better.
Sorry, we lost you there, mate.
Sorry.
No, signal's really gone, mate. Really gone.
Sherry sounded like something out of a 1980s movie there, like a sci-fi movie, a 1980s sci-fi movie.
I'll tell you what it is. Jet gave Sherry a lend of his AI robot, and he's been impersonating the real Sherry on there, but he's just getting an update, and it's caused it to kind of malfunction slightly.
Sorry, lads. Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Yeah.
Go on, Sherry. Pick up where you left off.
Sorry, yeah. So I'm saying I think Khan should win a decision, but you can't trust him in it. Khan, you can't trust him. He might get knocked down. He might get knocked out. I don't know, but I'm going to go with the Khan decision. I think it looked pretty decent.
I wonder what the odds are on the. I wonder what the odds are on Lo Greco knocking him out.
You can get 16 to 1.
Okay.
I'm having a bet in the fight. I think.
What's your bet, Gus? Go on.
Lo Greco,
the man who likes. Oh, come on. 16 to 1. 16 to
1. So
that's not great odds, but it's amazing. You can still, that's people are saying there's 8% chance Khan gets knocked out. Fuck's sake. But I think Khan will stop him.
You think Khan will stop him?
Yeah, Lo Greco was fat as fuck in that, 8 weeks beforehand. And he looks like death. Wait till you see him on the scales tomorrow. He'll be like death. I think Khan of 4 to 11 is good value. Lo Greco is going to get stopped, man.
Oh, really? I'm surprised because Khan never stopped. Well, there's quite a number of people you could say Khan didn't stop.
Has he stopped anyone since Malignaggi? Has he stopped anyone since Malignaggi?
I think he has. Surely he has. Come on now.
He stopped Carlos Molina.
He's certainly not a big puncher at 147, let alone 150. Also, he's had all sorts of problems with his training camp, Khan, hasn't he?
He knocked out Zab Judah. Zab Judah was the last one he knocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't scored a knockout for 7 years. I bet you've had one since then, Paul.
Paul is knocking one out as we speak.
How did you fucking know, you wanker? You've got cameras in here. I knew it.
Don't call me a wanker.
Moving on. So Sherry doing Khan points. Tom's going Khan KO. Paul, where do you stand?
Khan points. I don't think he'll knock him out. I think Lo Greco looks reasonably durable. Like I say, he took a hell of a hiding off of Spence, and he was only stopped on his feet. He never dropped him or anything that I recall. So yeah, I think Khan on points is the safe bet, to be honest.
Okay. Let's talk about Frampton Donaire. I had to come to Khan first because obviously having Sherry on the panel, I wanted to give it due attention. But But Frampton Donaire is kind of like the boxing fans' fight of the weekend. Well, certainly the UK fight of the weekend. There's a big fight in the States as well. Tom, how do you assess that matchup?
Well, I've got a question I want to ask first, Gossip. Which fight are you going to watch, Lo Greco or Donaire versus Frampton? Look, you even had to think. What the fuck? You made the error of watching a Coley versus Chambers against like the best cruiserweight fight in years. Look at him.
Shocking, BG, that you actually had to think about it.
Shocking. This must be the most casual fucking channel on the internet.
You've got Amir Khan's return is everything. You've got to watch that.
Oh, Amir Khan against Lo Greco. Fuck me. Probably a top 15 147 pounder against a top 100 147 pounder.
Yeah. Or you could watch Carl Frampton against an ancient guy from 20 divisions below. Depends who he's
world champion though, and you gotta give him that. So
he was a world champion at super feather. He's fighting an ex-champion of super feather.
Tom, did you not see Eddie Hearn's interview on IFL TV? He confirmed that Lo Greco was world class.
Oh my god! I can't actually watch those interviews anymore. I actually can't watch them. I just find them just putrefyingly, brain-smashingly bad. They're just incredibly bad watching.
You've got to watch them for entertainment. But yeah.
No way. I used to watch them, and I used to find them vaguely entertaining, but now it's just... I can't even find Amir Khan here. Is he even rated on BoxRec? Fucking hell.
Probably not, mate. He hasn't had a fight for 2 years.
Here we go. Amir Khan. Is he saying he's even active?
Yeah, he's active.
Why are you searching him for?
I want to see what his ranking is. He doesn't have a ranking.
They only rank you if you fought in the last year, mate.
Right, so he's not ranked. Well, but let's look at Lo Greco. Oh my god.
They've got him as...
He's 101. He's a 154 pounder. He's ranked 101, the 7th best in Canada. So there you go. Not even in the top 100 against Amir Khan, doesn't even have a ranking.
To be fair, though, that Canadian light middleweight scene is quite strong.
That is true.
Oh dear.
Well, Nonito Donaire is the 10th ranked featherweight. To put into perspective, you've got number two. You got number 2 against number 10, and then the other one is you got unranked against 101. And Gossip will watch Khan. Fucking hell. Oh, I think Carl Frampton will be. I think he'll be good, and I think he'll win easy. I think he will school him. I don't think he will stop him. I think it'll be 10 rounds to 2. And I expect him to be much better than the last fight. The last fight, Carl Frampton was really good for about 3 or 4 rounds. He looked excellent. And then his gas tank emptied and he looked shit. And the thing is, I think, Frampton had so much stuff going on now back for that fight that he's much more settled, I'd say, at the moment. So I think, look, if he's not able to beat Nonito Donaire, he won't beat anybody good anymore because Donaire's on the slide. But Donaire still has a punch. And Frampton does have, if he's not able to keep him off, he'll have some problems.
Yeah, I'm not hyped for that fight, and I know I'll get called a Hearn fanboy, but so what? I'm used to it. Like, Donaire is 35 years old. He's fighting in the wrong division. He's clearly on the slide. Clearly. I'm not hearing anyone making a case for Donaire to win that fight. Frankly, I do believe the Lo Greco fight is the more competitive matchup. I know the bookmakers' odds may not agree with that, but that's my suggestion, having watched all 4 guys.
One is a 5-1 fight, and another is a 12-1 fight.
I don't know. No, I don't agree that Khan Lo Greco is more competitive than Donaire and Frampton. No chance.
Well, let me ask you this, Paul. Would you be surprised if Lo Greco starts Khan?
No, but I was.
Would you be surprised if the Donaire beat Frampton? Because I would be.
I wouldn't be surprised if Donaire started.
If he knocked him out. I mean, Donaire's got fucking scary power, and the power's the last thing to go. I mean, I think.
No, I think BG's right over the two fights. The more competitive fight is Khan and Lo Greco, but that doesn't mean that Donaire and
okay, lads,
Frampton isn't a good fight.
I'll offer money to anybody. I bet you that the Donaire fight will be. I bet you the Amir Khan Lo Greco fight is not going to be competitive. Lo Greco has chosen to be not competitive. It's not going to be competitive. Look, what's his best win? What is his best win? Have a look at his record and tell me what Lo Greco's best win.
And
even I don't recognize any of them.
And even if you look at the losses and the fights that we've seen, Lo Greco just looked durable. He didn't look, looking durable is not the same as looking good. He's very, very basic, very, very basic. He's got that weird sort of like where he holds the jabbing hand out. Really, do you know what you call it? Where he's got a really weird fucking style on that as well. He's not good. He's not good. He's not good.
This Nonito Donaire, though. Sorry, I'm gonna take you guys on here. I'm hearing about this earth-shattering power, this devastating punch. The guy's got a 57% KO ratio at lighter weight classes.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm looking at the guys he's beaten. When was the last time Nonito Donaire beat a top drawer opponent? I'm not saying he hasn't done it in the past. I'm saying when was the last time he did it? The guy's 35. He's fighting away from home. He's clearly on the slide. He got UD'd by Jesse Magdaleno. He got stopped by Nicholas Waters. The guy is, for me, this guy is easy work for Carl Frampton, who, by the way, has the same KO ratio.
Well, here, put it this way: he was world. He won. He was a WBO super bantamweight titleist. He was the world champion 2 years ago. Right, so 2 years ago he was a world titleist. Yeah, and then he lost a unanimous decision against Jesse Magdaleno, and that wasn't actually that was a good fight. That wasn't like he had nothing in there. Magdaleno won. I thought Magdaleno won fairly clear, but I don't think the cards were like crazy wide. So it was 116, 112. So I think to say that he's absolutely shit is kind of crazy. He's not.
Say that. He's not gonna beat Carl Frampton. Come on.
Well, I tell you, if Carl Frampton's engine problems aren't fixed, that'll be a tight fight.
No,
but if Carl Frampton's engine problems are good, he'll school him. It's kind of an unknown one. But like to make out Lo Greco like he's the best guy Lo Greco ever bet. Like seriously, have you seen his the best win he seems to have had on his record is a guy called Brandon Hoskins in 2012.
Yeah, good fighter.
Yeah, good fighter. Finished, retired now. Retired with 16-6-1. Yeah, and he would never bet anybody with a winning record, and that's his best win. So, but Lo Greco has one of those padded records that he's never fought anybody, and when he did, they just smashed him.
Eddie Hearn said he was world class, though. Do you know what? I'll go off on a slight tangent, and I'll keep it a little bit brief because I've got to be out of here by 1:30. But I experienced some of the sway of Eddie Hearn for the first time on the channel this week. So I did a little video talking about the Wilder-Joshua splits, where I essentially was closer to siding with Team Wilder than I was with Team Joshua. Anyway, the video got about 600 views on it straight off. And I would say across about 40 comments, over 35 of them were broadly positive of the video I'd done. Eddie Hearn then had an extended video interview drop. I believe it was with IFL TV, where he talked about the, the Wilder negotiations in more depth. Over the course of the night, I probably had another 600 views on the video. And I woke up and I had about 50 comments saying that I was an idiot, that I knew nothing about boxing, that I should give up the YouTube channel and jump off a bridge, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it was very, very, very interesting, how the public perception changed so dramatically hours after Eddie Hearn, did an interview with IFL TV. And it did show what a powerful medium that is for influencing the boxing public, even using my small channel as a barometer there.
I would like to say, though, Tom, sorry about the bridge comment. I think that was a bit out of order. I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, you're forgiven. You're forgiven. But anyway, yeah, Eddie Hearn says Lo Greco's world class. Let's see if he is. Let's see if he is. I thought that was a fairly bold statement.
I've got something to say as well. It's like, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, he was interviewed and it's in like the independent newspaper, and he's saying how it'll be bigger than Tyson versus Lewis, and it'll be hopefully bigger than more than £100 million fight. And now in all his interviews, he's saying it's a £40 million fight. And he's like, literally on Twitter, somebody was saying, "How come you said this, Eddie?" And they quoted him, and he said, and he replied to them saying, "I never said that." And then they fucking put the link, and it's like to the independent website, and he's like, there's no response from Eddie Hearn to that. It's just like, it's just such rubbish. Offering a flat fee. What, like, if he's really interested in it, what he'd do is he'd offer him a percentage, and you wouldn't care less. If it was 10 million or 40 million, just offering 25%. Who gives a shit?
I've got to be honest, this Wilder AJ thing is getting fucking ridiculous for me. The whole sort of like, AJ fanboy channels doing videos, and then, the Wilder fanboy channels will do this, and one's ducking and blah, blah, blah. You've got like the boxing voice. Every time one of them fucking has a shit, they do a podcast. And it's just fucking ridiculous at this point. It's really fucking ridiculous. I don't care about this now until it happens. I don't care.
I'll tell you what would make me laugh about that video, though, is so I said, where do I stand on the AJ versus Wilder negotiations? Instantly, about 3 or 4 seconds in, I get a critical comment from Irish Tom, who clearly hadn't watched the video.
I know.
Because he just decided to prejudge the content. Anyway, so I thought, I won't reply. I'll give him 5 minutes. I thought, I'll wait to see if he watches the video and then comments again. So I refreshed the page 10 minutes in, and the comment had been deleted.
I know. I was wondering if anybody would see it. I was like, I can't get caught. I can't get caught slagging him.
I'm called out, man.
Slag me off being an AJ fanboy, despite the whole video was in favour of Wilder.
I know. I was like, oh, jeez, I'm going to delete it. I hope I got in there quick before anybody saw it.
Oh,
dear.
Tom's exposed. Let us just make a note of this date and time. The point at which you boys, you think I've been exposed as a. You boys might think I've been exposed as a cunt, but I've always been a cunt. So like, no one here is in any doubt. Brilliant.
Let me give a quick whip round the panel about another good fight that's maybe a little bit under the radar. Vargas versus Broner. I'll go first very quickly. I've been a huge Adrian Broner fan. I've backed him on the channel time and time again. I actually think it's time to abandon Adrian Broner, unfortunately. The guy continues to lose when he fights class opposition. The guy continues to lose when he fights the bigger men. He's up against Jesse Vargas, who's a decent fighter, a bigger guy, a guy who can box from the outside. And I am Team Vargas for this one. Sherry, where do you stand on it, mate?
Yeah, 100%. I think Adrian's smaller men, whenever he's stepped up against a guy who's bigger from Mikey Garcia, He's not looked the same, and I think Jesse Vargas is a low-level operator. I have him he's around the top 10 is in welterweight, so I think he's gonna beat Broner. I don't think Broner's gonna win. Different.
Do you think he'll lose by just seeing Tom's? Oh no, it's Tom's back. So I was going to say, do you think he'll lose on points? He's hard to stop, isn't he, Broner?
I don't think Broner.
Yeah, he has been.
Say again.
I think he's gonna get knocked out. If Maidana didn't batter him and knock him out, then I don't think Vargas will. I know that's a silly thing to say, but I reckon Vargas will beat him on points. But you got to bear in mind that they might try and if it's fairly competitive, they might try and give the Broner. So in that regard, I think Vargas should stop him. Hopefully.
Sorry to take over for you there, BG. I just for the sake of continuity, seeing as you keep fucking up and that.
Yeah, very good. Sorry, I had to refill my water.
So unprofessional. So unprofessional.
I know. It's like watching Newsnight. Paul, Tom, what are you picking in that one?
I think. Go on, Tom.
Oh no, I think it's a close enough fight. I haven't seen enough of Vargas, but I'll go Vargas points.
Yeah, I think Vargas points as well. Vargas ain't great, but he was competitive against Pacquiao at least. I think he'll beat him. I don't think Broner's up to it. Broner's fucking. Why does anybody still? I mean, people kind of don't, do they? But why does anybody still care about Broner? It's like him. He's kind of all right. Hey,
he's a celebrity, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's a wanker celebrity. He's like fucking. He's always like getting in the news and on social media for bad stuff. It's always like beating up his missus or going to jail or fucking threatening to kill himself or whatever the fuck it is he's doing. Like, I just don't really care. I'm more interested in the Gervonta Davis Jesus Cuellar fight. I think that's a decent little fight. Cuellar's got power as well.
Yeah.
Who was that? Sorry,
Gervonta Davis and Jesus Cuellar on the undercard though.
Yeah, the bookmaker's making Gervonta Davis a huge favourite for that one. Do you see it as more competitive?
No. Knock him out.
How much of a favourite?
1 to 5 on.
No, I mean, I do think Davis will win, but I think it might be more competitive than that. I mean, Davis is a fighter that's kind of like, I think he's got a few emotional problems, Gervonta Davis. I think his head's not right. Whether he sorts that out, I don't know. But I think being around Adrian Broner and being in camp with Adrian Broner is probably not the sort of like element in your life that's likely to sort of like bring that change about, shall we say? If he's at his best, he knocks him out. But I'm not so sure. I don't know. I think it's a fun fight. I think it's a decent fight.
He'll stop him.
There's a few other decent fights this week. Sean Dodd takes on Tommy Coyle on the Hearn card. John O'Carroll takes on Marco McCulloch even on the Warren card. Zolani Teti fights Oman Alvarez. You've also got Mateus Mastanek versus Kalenga. Thomas Adamek versus Joey Abel. There's quite a lot of action this week.
The Egg's fighting as well, I think.
Egg versus Ryan Toms.
Yeah.
Natasha Jonas in action. Conrad Cummings, Tyrone McKenna.
Fowler.
Yeah, it's quite an action-packed weekend.
Anthony Fowler will be on that card as well. There's loads of fights at the weekend, loads of boxing at the weekend. It's fucking great.
I think there's one we've forgot to talk about, or maybe you weren't planning on talking about it, which isn't this weekend. But did anyone see the photos of the Pacquiao-Matisse press conference?
No, why?
Yeah, because it's July 14th, isn't it? It's happening. They did the press conference yesterday in Malaysia. So yeah, it's happening for the regular WBA welterweight title. So yeah, I don't know what anyone's thinking about that. Is that going to be a good fight? Do you reckon, or what?
I think it'll be a good fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jamal Charlo's fighting as well, by the way, on that.
Yeah, against Santino, isn't it?
Yeah, Hugo Santino Jr. Yeah. He'll beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, he'll beat. That's why I'm not bothered about discussing it, because he's going to win. And then he's mandatory for Triple G.
Dead.
That's a good card in America, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's not even pay-per-view, lads. Pity it's not pay-per-view, huh? I have a question for Gossip.
Did you hear my breaking news just then?
What was that?
Dale Winton is dead.
I know, that was going to be my Annie Moore discussion.
Oh, was it really? Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder.
Dale.
R.I.P. Dale. Yeah. I'm going to have a question for you, Gossip. If the Sky card is running a bit late and Anthony Fowler's fight against TBA is on against Donaire versus Frampton, will you watch that one?
No, come on.
I'm trying to work out if I should give you an honest answer or not. Basically, there's a very, very, very high chance I won't have internet this weekend, and I only have access to Box Nation via the Box Nation app. So yeah, I don't want to make two excuses. If it plays out the way I will want to, I will of course be watching Frampton Donaire. Good.
Yeah. Well, Tanya, Gossip, that's what you get for landing in prison.
I know. I should have run a bit faster, hey? Yeah. Right. It's that time of the week. Let me go around the panel and ask for any other business before we call it a night. Paul, have you got anything else you want to throw into the mix?
Come to me last.
Come to me last. Okay. I do need to get off very soon.
Just because I don't know. I've written some stuff down. I don't know whether we've covered it or not. So,
okay.
Come to me last. It sounds like a come on from the 1930s, isn't it? Come to me last, girl. Come to me last.
Like a song title, isn't it?
Anything more from you, Sherry?
Nothing from me, BG. I'm done, mate.
You're good. Irish Tom.
I was just wondering if anybody has had any Agogo news for a while.
Oh, fucking hell.
He's still coming out and saying how he's going to fighting for a world title.
No chance. He needs to retire.
Yeah, I don't actually know. He's got this horrific eye injury, doesn't he?
I don't know if he does. I'm sure he had an eye injury, but I'd say he's just trying to get himself a media career. He doesn't want to get hit in the face anymore.
He's milking it.
I have got
Twitter now. It says, just a small town boy with a big heart and bigger dreams. 2012 Olympic medalist, future world champ, and the next James Bond.
Just a small town boy. It's a fucking song lyric, isn't it? He's saying
it is. It's
if he's saying the children are our future next, fucking hell.
Yeah. As well, it's Bronski beat. And have you seen the picture of him in the circle? He's wearing the glasses.
Really missed it. Yeah.
That is bad, man. That is like he should be ashamed of himself. He should be ashamed of himself. If you look at the main screen of his picture, the big one is of him like making weight and showing off his muscles. And if you look, everybody's looking down at the floor like they're embarrassed to be near him because they just saw the other photo on his Twitter profile. Fucking hell.
Quick question, actually. For I don't know if anyone knows, is the great destroyer Conor Benn back this weekend?
Yes, he is. He's on that other card. He's on
absolutely brilliant. All right, cool. That's all I need
to know. I prefer to see him back on a pay-per-view undercard myself.
For the big nights down the line.
That's it.
Thing is, if it was on a big pay-per-view card, you see, he wouldn't be fighting Chris Truman 13-8-2 because there would have been the money. Yeah.
Chris Truman is quite a good opponent, really. 13 wins, 2 of them by devastating knockout.
Oh, shit.
The 657th best super lightweight in the world. And he goes by the alias of the Truminator.
Oh, God.
Oh my God.
I think his best win as well is being against a guy, Carl Allen, who was 19, 113 and 7.
Oh, wow. Fucking.
I'm just waiting for the Conor Benn versus Cedric Payno
Actually,
rematch that we're being promised.
To be fair to Chris Truman, he upset a guy who was 9-0, and he upset a guy who was 1-0, 11-6. He did also beat someone who was 0-52. But yeah, I mean,
can you imagine being 0-52? Imagine being 0-51. Somebody goes, well, don't think you should bother anymore. Leave it. Hang them up. Like, this is the point at which you should hang them up.
But yeah, good to see Conor Benn back.
Couldn't care less, lads. Couldn't care less.
Yeah,
Oh.
I have got something.
Oh, no.
You're banned from using the word Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, yeah, no. Fuck Stephen A. Smith. He's a wanker, man. Has anybody seen the fucking whole, like, Floyd, Loma next for Gervonta Davis, and Gervonta sort of, like, giving out yards about him on fucking Twitter, saying, like, he was set up, like...
Yeah.
I've never heard of a fucking fighter referred to his world title shot as a setup. That's a fighter that, you know, like, it hasn't got a lot of confidence in himself, and he's, like, referring to this now as a setup again, and, you know, because he's trying to get him in with Loma and that. I think Floyd's like thinking, yeah, you want to give it the big one and go and train with Broner and start talking about me on Twitter. I'm going to throw you to the fucking wolves. I wondered what you guys thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, but isn't Lomachenko going to be fighting at lightweight though, or is he going to come back down?
I don't know if he's going up completely.
I think he is, because if he beats Linares, he's champion. Ring Magazine, WBA, and WBC Diamond, or whatever the fuck that means. But yeah,
that's a good point, actually. Well, Floyd seems to think. Floyd said he'd been in contact with somebody at what do you call it? Fucking the old fella, Top Rank.
But to be fair though, Mikey Garcia vacated his 140 strap because he said he wants to come down and fight the winner of Linares Lomachenko for the full WBC title. So to defend his, and then obviously whoever has a diamond strap should face him next. So unless Lomachenko vacates that, we could be in for Lomachenko and Garcia.
But the thing is, it's Floyd, isn't it? Floyd's involved. Floyd's reach is quite far, I think.
No, but
Floyd wants to fight.
Floyd doesn't have any
it
reach.
may happen.
Floyd doesn't have any reach in terms of Garcia and Lomachenko, does he? That's not anything involved with him.
No, of course not. No, but
because Tank, bear in mind, Tank is fighting for the WBA regular title against Quayoff in their weight class, which is what is he? The super, what is he? Super feather.
I mean, he might have some pull at Top Rank. No, that's the thing. I don't know.
No, he hasn't got any Top Rank. I think he's just saying that for publicity. The more realistic fight is Lomachenko and Garcia. If Garcia and Lomachenko both want it, then they can push for it to happen.
That's for the super world super featherweight title, not the regular.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Pardon me.
It's okay.
Right, gents. I'm going to call it a night. Let me start by saying many thanks to my wonderful panel, to the always controversial Irish Tom, to the always articulate Paul, and to the ever loyal Seri Abbasi. Thank you very much indeed for all your time tonight. Thanks to all the guys in the chat who've been here from start to finish. Many thanks for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed the show. It's been fun to do it. And I will say happy Wednesday and hopefully see you all next week.
Definitely.
Happy Wednesday.
Can I just happy Wednesday? And Jay's a bum and Warjet.